Hey guys, going to be doing something a little different here. This is just a quick, entirely audio recording. I'm just going to do I mentioned this in a draft that I recorded that of course you will not see until after this goes up. Basically just a nice little recap of the Innistrad release draft a couple days ago. I actually did not end up going to F&M. I went to a Dan Mangan concert instead, which was well worth it. It was a great show. I highly recommend it for anyone who actually knows who that is. So yeah, I didn't go to F&M, so I haven't experienced the real draft format yet. But I did experience the double Dark Ascension draft format. I did go to the release party. So I'll give a quick little recap of that. Basically what happened was, I think I might have predicted this. I said, I think with 2 Dark Ascension packs, Tribal is going to be fairly viable. If you can pick up 1 or 2 captains, you're almost guaranteed to see a couple of captains, at least see. I don't know, it has to be somewhat early to fit in with your deck and whatnot, but yeah, I think I first picked, the pick was between Increasing Devotion and Tragic Slip, and I think Tragic Slip might actually be kind of close. Tragic Slip is very, very good. Briar Pack Alpha was also in the pack, which is pretty insane. I ended up just taking the rare, because I also like lots of little tokens, and I figured that would be cool. Then I got past the Jog Skull Captain, and there was really nothing else in the pack. I went from a good pack to a... There was, what was missing? The rare was missing, and the guy passing to me actually took Sorin. So, Sorin was far and away the best card in that pack. But there was just really kind of junk after that. There was stuff like Jog Skull Captain that was a bit... there was playable stuff, nothing that you'd really want to second pick. So I took Jar Skull Captain. I ended up getting a second one of those. And I drafted a cool little White-Blue Spirits deck. There are a couple cards I wasn't too happy about playing. I'll mention those when I get there. But, basically, yeah, I'm just going to read out my deck. And, it's not in order. I did take the lands out. But, yeah, so any duplicates, I'll just mention that there's 2 of them when I get to the second one. I got it in my hand here. So it was 10 plains, 7 islands for the mana base, which is pretty clear mana base. You got a bit more white than blue. It's what you want to play. So all I really had to do there. Let's see, first card here, we got Burden of Guilt. This card is, don't get me wrong, it's obviously nowhere near as good as Bonds of Faith or Claustrophobia. The mana every turn, it does kind of hurt you. It shouldn't hurt you too much once you get to the later stages of the game, but it's hard to play early and stay aggressive. But it's still definitely removal. I would still take this fairly early. It's still very good. I ran 2. I'll tell you that's one of the duplicates now. Yeah, I'll pull out the second one so we don't have to talk about it when I get to it. Yeah, I ran 2. I think I'd actually rather have 1 a lot of the time. There were some times where I drew both of them, and it was kind of awkward because it is a fairly significant mana investment. But I'm not saying it's bad to have 2. It's just not as good as having another card of around the same value. I'd rather have this and I don't know, is a priest around the same value? Probably. This and a priest. Oh, I don't know. Priest is so similar though because they're both tappers. Anyways, moving on. Face Shield. Cards are very good. I'm a huge fan of Stave Off. This has 2 relevant upsides, 1 relevant downside. The relevant downside is you can't target your opponent's creatures to get rid of auras. And the minor relevant upside is it lets you target permanent as opposed to creatures. So if you're so lucky to have a planeswalk or something, you can use it to save that. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do with it. And the Fateful Hour ability. I've never actually used this card with the Fateful Hour, but I imagine it would be pretty good. It's most of the time though, it's still just going to counter removal, and it's more than fine at doing that. Niblis of the Mist. This card's pretty good when you're getting aggressive. It comes in, it's 2 and it taps a dude. I wouldn't sorry about that. I wouldn't always play. Well, I think I'd always play it, but I wouldn't always try and draft multiples of them. Obviously, it was very good with my Jog Skull Captains, and it's still a more than fine. Well, not more than fine, but it's a pretty acceptable vanilla test creature, and the tapping does usually help. Jog Skull Captain. There's one of those. This was kind of the centerpiece of the deck. I got both of them out once, and it ran show. I mean, Hexproof is very good for obvious reasons, and the +1/+1 when most of your creatures are flyers and not that big is also very relevant as well, because like Niblis of the Mist, that turning into a 3/2, that suddenly becomes like a very big threat in the air, or at least a fairly major one compared to 2/1, which trades with anything. Like, makes you a lot less vulnerable to those 1/1 spirit tokens, which unfortunately I didn't get a Midnight Haunting or Lingering Souls. I would have loved one of those, because if I had gotten a couple of those plus a couple other cards I had, or like a Doom Traveler even, I probably would have played my Intangible Virtue I picked up. Speaking of Innistrad packs, all the Dark Ascension packs are fine. You're going to notice I don't have a ton of Innistrad cards in here, and a lot of the ones I do are kind of more marginal, right? Main reason being, Innistrad, I opened one card that we'll get to later, and then I also got a Claustrophobia second pick, and then I saw very little blue after. I took basically all the blue cards that were left that I saw. They weren't like Curse the Bloody Tome. And not that great white. Neither of the guy passing to me was in white-black. The guy to my left was in green-black. So he passed me pack too. So I didn't really have a problem with getting cut too hard. Like our white, there's enough white in Innistrad and Dark Ascension that you can be fine. But yeah, just didn't see a lot in Innistrad of blue. Anyways, Gather the Townsfolk. That's another Dark Ascension card. Obviously, this is one of the reasons I would have played Intangible Virtue had I gotten a couple more things like Spirit Token Makers. It's not as nice because it didn't really synergize with my Draw Kill Captains or anything. But like I still would not have like 2/1/1s is generally pretty fine on turn 2, and Fateful Hour is very good with that. So Moment of Heroism, that's a pretty good combat trick as far as combat tricks go. I'm not going to talk too much about the Innistrad cards, mostly because you guys all know what they are. Niblis of the Urn, I think this guy's better than the Mist. He's a bit weaker, but once with the captains, that's not as much of an issue due to the fact, like, he's a bit weaker in power and toughness. But the captains make that not too much of an issue because he becomes a 2/2. But tapping whenever it attacks is usually a lot better than tapping when it enters the battlefield, and he's cheaper. So I really like that guy. Spectral Rider, that's definitely one of the better cards I got out of Innistrad. I was so fortunate to come across 2 of these. I'll probably pull the second one out, so yeah. Okay, yeah, like, Intimidate is obviously rather good. It's a good evasion ability. And, you know, Spirit, so that's great. Battleground Geist is a card that usually I don't like playing. Like, it's alright. It's a bit expensive for what it does. Like, almost 90% of the time you'd rather have Murder Crows. But with so many Spirits and the Captains in the stack, this guy became pretty insane. And I was almost never I don't think I was ever unhappy dropping him. Headless Scab. My deck didn't really have any ways to mill itself, so to speak, so sometimes it was like stuck in my hand for a little. But it's still a fine creature. It's definitely good for stopping their attacks on the ground. Niblis of the Mist, we already talked about that. I have 2 of those. Dry Skull Captain, we already talked about that. Niblis of the Urn, we already talked about that. Jeez, all the duplicates in a row. Gavany Ironwright. I mentioned this in my Innistrad pre-release little recap. He's good. He is, his Fateful Hour ability is very good, and in a deck like mine that has a lot of spirits that or flyers that appreciates the ground blockers, because your power and toughness is going to be lower on average. And he certainly blocks well, or she. I guess it's a chick, isn't it? Whatever. Increasing Devotion, this was a solid first pick. There's one story that kind of sucks. I'll tell you about it, but when I did cast it, you know, it was almost... I casted it once, and I promptly won the game. So, actually... I lost that game. Jeez, the only time I cast it, I lost. But we'll get to that story. Sell-off Occultist. She's... I mean, the milling, that's actually... I do have a way to enable my Headless Scab. I was always milling myself, just, you know, in case. But yeah, it's a 2/3. That's pretty fine. Most of the time it was just a Riot Devil's Divination. We all know what that card does. Artful Dodge wasn't quite so good in my deck, but making a creature unblockable is actually, you know, it's a good way to get the last points of damage in there, and you can do it twice. So, yeah, I don't mind. It was when I only casted it once all day, and I won. So, Bone to Ash. This one's a little bit awkward. I think it's a bit expensive for what it does. But, I used it, I think it was match 3, game 3. I used it to counter a Sea Kite that was flashed in and win the game. So that was cool. And I actually kind of predicted the Sea Kite. I looked at his mana up and I went, if he had any removal, because he was blue-black, So there were like two things he could have at instant speed that would actually let him survive. It was like it was match 3, game 1. No, was it game 3? Yeah, it was game 3. There were two things that could let him survive. It was Victim of Night and Sea Kite, and so I figured, keep it up. I was going to play anything. I was going to play post-combat, so it was great. Claustrophobia. This is probably the second best card I got out of his draw. All the Spectral Riders are pretty insane with my deck. And yeah, it tapped faces. That's all I can say with that. Finally, Machias. Oh, Machias is kind of silly. I'm not going to lie. The fact that he comes down anywhere on the curve. I played him. I never played him for more than 4, and I never played like for more than 4 counters. And he never came in with more than 4 counters or less than 2, which is, I think, the ideal spots to cast him. Like, he's a big enough creature that he can dodge some removal. Like, I don't really like putting your Machias to 1. Like, I play around it a couple times. Like, often it's better to pump your team to go to 1 before you make him bigger again, so you can continue to do that. But against like black or red, yeah, I don't like bringing him to 1 like ever, because Tragic Slip and Geist Flame just become so good. But yeah, he was very good in my deck. The matches, they're only 4. Round 1 I actually had to drop. I had somewhere to go at noon. It was like doesn't matter what it was. It was like a music workshop. But yeah, I had to go to that. So unfortunately I missed that round, so that was a loss. Can't say whether I would have won or not, but whatever. Came back from match 2, a bit into round 2. My opponent was out getting lunch because I guess Feud wasn't there, but he thought I might have been coming back, so he didn't report the match or anything. We came back, we played. Game 1, basically what happened was this. He got Curse of Death's Hold out and Machias Unhollowed out. Like, I was playing alright up until then, but he got both of those out. And unfortunately, he dropped Death's Hold on curve. He was on the play, which prevented me from dropping my on-curve Increasing Devotion, for obvious reasons. So game 2, I made the only sideboard I was going to make all day, which is, I put in Ray of Relevation. We played it out for a while. He got stuck around 3 lands or so, which is kind of like for me, and I just had so many flyers that game that there was really nothing. Like, I got both my captains out that game, I believe, and so I just kind of walked over from that one. I had a bunch of my tapping stuff as well to stop creatures. Game 3, I got stuck on 1 land for a really long time. He wasn't aggressive enough to punish me, but I unfortunately, I was on the play. No, I mulled to, okay, I drew a no-lander. I mulled to 6, and yeah, drew no-lander, mulled to 6, had another no-lander, figured it was a little better, and so I kept it 6, played that land, so I have 5 cards in hand, and I ended up having to discard off of that. Like, I just didn't draw lands for enough time. I discarded, like, Artful Lodge or something, which wasn't too bad. But yeah, I kind of tried to stabilize, but he got some big creatures out, like Somberwalled Spider, Hollowhenge Beast, Machias Unhollowed again. I did kill his Death's Hold with my Ray both of these games, luckily. It's the only sideboard I made all day. Yeah, but he did that, and then I got like a Battleground Geist out eventually, but like he had been removing all my creatures as well. I ended up birding. My single out was I had Burden of Guilt, I had Moment of Heroism in hand. I drew Burden of Guilt. I put it on as Machias. I was at a pretty low life total. In fact, it might have been like 1 or 2. When he swung with Hollowhenge Beast, I Moment of Heroism to trade my Battleground Geist as a 5/5 with it. Right, it came back as a 6/6 because or maybe I forget 7/7/6, something silly because Machias Unhollowed is crazy bomb, and basically I needed to draw another piece of removal for that, like Claustrophobia or something, or like I don't know, Increasing Devotion just to stall. But I drew land, and that was all. So yeah, that's what happened there. Match 3, game 1, I got a lot of flyers out, and yeah, I basically just ended up, this is where I counted his Sea Kite. I basically just ended up killing him. There wasn't a lot he could do. I got tokens out as well. Match 2, I dropped this is one where I cast Increasing Devotion. And here's what happened. We played a long series of games with me going to 1 and then stabilizing the board. Now, going to 1 was really scary against him because he had Geralf's Messenger. So I ended up burdening of guilting that, obviously. Thank God. But basically, I knew that if he drew a sack outlet or anything, I was dead to that. I couldn't let him attack. Like, I was in some scary shape. Basically, what happened was just by beating down in the air with, like, Niblis of the... What was it? Niblis of the Urn? I think was the guy that taps when he attacks. Yeah, Niblis of the Urn. Just by doing that for a while, I did get him actually really low life as well. And basically what happened was I had an opportunity to win the game. But then, I missed it. I was too concerned about blocking his dude. I didn't attack with my Headless Scab because he had a Headless Scab, and we were kind of letting them just bounce off each other whenever one of them wanted to attack. But he had actually attacked last turn because I traded a 1/1 with his Strange Assistant, and he Undying Evil did back. So I was too concerned about, but he had all his guys tapped except for Deranged Assistant. When I attacked with Niblis, Deranged Assistant gets tapped. And I didn't consider this, so I looked at the board and I went, geez, I don't have lethal, I better leave my guys back. But had I attacked and tapped, I would have easily lethaled him, because 3 extra damage from Headless Scab. But I hadn't even thought about his life total, because I had just been kind of beating down in the air, like, every turn, just for no reason other than doing it. And, I had only been drawing lands for about 3 turns up to that point, so I knew I didn't have any action. I basically let the game win go by me, and he drew whatever it is that 3 damage draw a card, Harrowing Journey, I think. He drew that, and I died. And then I looked at I drew my 3 cards, anyways, even though I was dead, and they were all lands. So that unfortunately happened. Game 3, we got into a really interesting series of events where, like, basically, he killed my my Jog Skull Captain off early, which smart move, but I was still beating down in the air with spirits. Then I cast Machias as a 3/3, or as a 4/4, sorry. And he grasped it. And I went, well, geez, still, next turn, cast Machias as a 4/4. And he grasps it. And I'm like, how many grasps do you have? And he goes, 3. I'm like, Jesus, 1 pack in his stride, got 3. His pod sounded great. I wish I was in that pod. Shit. Anyways. But yeah, and then, this next turn, I'm like, okay, Machias, what I'm playing him for doesn't really matter. But I have Faith Shield in my hand. So I'm like, the fact that he has 3 kind of makes me think that there's another one, or like in his hand possibly, or more removal, because he doesn't seem to be very concerned about Machias, right? And I'm just like, well, I'll just play him for 3 and leave 1 Plains up for Faith Shield. And that was actually a really big telegraph. I don't think he picked up on it, luckily, that I had something. I don't know what else I could have for 1 white. Maybe he just thought, I don't know. I don't even know what he thought I could have. But he went for it anyways. He actually drew Death's Caress that turn, played that. So I was like, geez, thank God I have Faith Shield. So I Faith Shielded that. And then I just kind of won by buffing with Machias. Match 4, this really wasn't too hard. Game 1, I won with Machias, really. Like an early Machias, like I dropped him for 2. Then I started getting my dudes out. In Game 2, I won with double Jogskull Cat. So I definitely think I built a pretty sweet deck. There are some cards I'm not crazy about, and they were like, yeah. But obviously all the Spirit synergies and Machias and all that, that's fantastic. And yeah, that was my Innistrad or Dark Ascension release experience. I'll be recording. I got probably, how many more do I have to put up? I've been deleting a bunch just because they weren't that good, and Dark Ascension coming out, but I gotta put up about 3 more triple Innistrad drafts. Yeah, about 3 more of those, and then I'm gonna be recording a Dark Ascension pre-release sealed online for you guys to watch. That should be cool. I don't usually do pre-releases online, actually, because there are too many tickets. But I think that now that I'm recording stuff, I might as well, because everyone will be doing it. So yeah, look out for a few more Innistrad drafts. Might talk about Dark Ascension as the format a little more, another one of these audio things before it comes out on MODO, but it seems like it's going to be a great set. I'm not sad that I went to see Dan Mangan. That was awesome, but I should have my feelings on Dark Ascension and Innistrad as a format soon. So yeah, thank you for listening, and I will see you guys later.